bet, and when Craig gets sabotaged because he jacks up his leg or something and gets injured, he has to donate $365 to the North Carolina Tar Heels Scholarship Fund.
Never happens.
I love this.
I would crawl.
That idea.
I would crawl 365 miles through broken glass and fire ants.
You gotta do, get to the bag. Stay at your 9 to 5, get on the avenue. You ain't cut out for them tags. Yeah.
You know, a lot of good advice, I guess. I see. It's a bunch of bullshit. And it's a lot of fun. You can win a lot of money. I will not hurt you. Come to the light, children. And play.
By light, he means dark, by the way.
Yeah.
For sure.
You better believe they're looking for me. One time, I'm going for mine.
I plan on studying 4-bet shove spots versus a 3-bet squeeze when there's 2 limpers in the pot already at about 55 big blinds, 3/4 of the way through the tournament.
I feel like you owe us a double dose of input into the hand history, John.
Yeah, where's that 40 bucks?
Fuck GTO.
Yes.
I'ma go get it. We just keep pushing the limit. I am like all the way with it, all the way living. Y'all are just bearing the weight.
Poker is like never going to be solved, right? I mean, too many combinations. We all know that. Like you can maybe solve pre-flop charts, whatever, but there's too many combinations of decision making to ever have it be solved. So, I mean, can't you get to almost the very top and just let your opponents make mistakes?
Maybe I'm not, but I'm better than you, yeah. But all of them voices, we got them. Lie to me, Hillary Rodham. I just came back from my kid in the bottom.
Yeah, I'll do the dad hat thing. I'll do it.
All right, we're in.
No. You have to do the North Carolina hat. No, we won't make him not wear a hat because I want to walk around with the guy. That's the first thing, is I do want to enjoy my time out with the guy. You know, when we go to dinner, I don't want people staring at me. But like the North Carolina thing, yeah, we can do that.
Is anybody gonna win a Grizzly before the series is over?
I'm gonna play one first.
I'm gonna win one. Fuck it, let's go.
Yeah, I gotta go. This how it go. Yeah, I'm dying to let you just say no. I gotta go. This how it go. Yeah, I'm dying to let you just say no. Yeah, I'm going for mine. Going for mine. You put it on me. You put it on me. You better believe. You better believe. You better believe they're looking for me. Yeah. I'm going for mine. You put it on mine. You better believe they're looking for me. I'm going for mine. You put it on mine. You better believe they're looking for me. Yeah. I'm going for mine. You put it on mine. You better believe they're looking for me. I'm going for mine. You put it on mine. You better believe they're looking for me.
Well, Jay, I guess you have to open because you're in the big box. I don't know that I can do the opening from the bottom right corner. So I guess, yeah, and he's just going to stay muted, whatever.
Yeah,
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Chase the Dream podcast. I am your host, Rob Gardner. Apologies for being about a minute late. I spent about 16 hours on solvers today, but don't worry. Check my shark scope. I wasn't playing on any sites, including ACR. So you guys are in the clear there. I'm joined by all my friends. Is this the first time we've had all 7 of us in like 2 months?
It's been a while. It's been a while.
I've been here every day.
I'm going to take the under on that.
Day?
Yeah, I don't leave the stream.
I have perfect attendance.
I've only missed
one.
You
do. Yeah. You do.
So I get to exempt my exams.
I got a
goody.
I got a good exam. I got a good exam for you.
That's part of the equation.
I'll ask you some questions later. See if you can nail it.
I'm ready.
Well, first thing we got to do is check in on Jay's sign. I mean, it's only apropos. which is Greek for the word appropriate. That's how that works. See, I read. What do we got here, Jay?
So where are we at? We're on this side. Yeah, this side today. Spell GTO.
It's too
Craig,
hard.
go.
Well, I don't know the optimal way to spell it, but I'll go OGT. How about that?
Mika. We'll just move on to Mika.
Tog.
Oh,
Tog.
Day. How do you?
Toga.
Sean. How do you spell GTO, Sean?
F
All right.
U.
Brett.
OG.
OG. All right, Rob. What about you, Rob?
I was a huge
spell
Game of
GTO?
Thrones fan until season 6, so I got to go with that.
Fair enough. I'm just really learning how to spell that GTO, and I've spent a lot of time in the last 3 months when I was telling everybody I wasn't playing, and I was actually like clowning you guys. I was studying my ass off in the background. I was studying GTO to go play 100K. That was $150 buy-in, So I learned a lot. I learned a lot. I'm sure.
Is this why you're not selling us action anymore? So for those of you guys in the audience, Jay comes in fashionably early, like 3 minutes before the pod starts, and is like, nobody took my action. And literally none of us, Mika, Craig, did anybody? None of us remember getting any notes. I mean, we all snap by Jay every time he sells because the only time he wins is when we get to buy a piece of him. So we all jump in.
This is fair.
And nothing.
I can't keep a profit because I sell my action. I don't sell my action. Toast, smoked. I sell my action, and it's like, oh, nice. You had a big 10K score. There you go. Give up.
Just sell a nickel. Just sell a nickel, bro. Just a nickel.
It's pretty sad.
wooden nickel.
You guys don't follow me on my pages. That's the problem. You don't follow me on social media. So when I post these things, you guys don't. I guess it's not in your algorithm. I'm gonna have to start using GTO in my algorithm.
Yeah, I'm not an OnlyFans subscriber, so I wouldn't find you.
Right.
Yeah.
And your one post per like 6 months, I don't think cuts it, man, for the algorithm.
That's only on TikTok.
That's like
all right.
everywhere.
Hold on. We're gonna do something. We're gonna do something impromptu. We don't normally do this because it's not behooved of us to do these types of things. But I'm gonna try to do some technology here. So we're gonna pull this up. I know this is bad news. Okay, we have the VA Venom Twitter page. Let's see. Let's go through here. Tagged post from June 16, 2019. With
I took those
with
tagged.
I'm pretty sure I
let's see,
took
we
those
got,
pictures.
Daniel, we've got Mizraki and Bonomo.
Where's
and
my
then nothing-
photographer's credit?
Yeah, well,
you never get
it
that.
says Ripple. So I don't know if that stands for.
That doesn't even exist. It's not even an app anymore. I think.
We got a post on the 13th about his 19th place finish. Got another post on the 13th.
Oh, look at that guy.
12. Hey, look at who's in there.
Brett?
Look at those handsome fellas.
That's Brett.
Do you guys
That's your
see
brother.
anything about action?
Yeah.
Look, there's Jim Reed. Oh, look, there's me.
Oh, look at there's Coach. There goes Mom Spaghetti. What else do we got?
Yeah,
here?
I don't.
Somebody was winning. Oh,
No,
there
we
goes
don't need to see that
Bragger.
chart.
Yeah, that bragging rights.
Yeah, I don't see it.
transitions. Oh, look at that.
Oh, we're all
There it is.
Oh, February 23rd.
You know what's funny?
Might as well
No,
be 10
my
years
bad.
ago, bro.
Hey, you know what's funny? I totally even forgot that I had posted it. It was so long ago. That is so funny.
God. All right, what else? What does everybody else have going on other than Jay? We need to put somebody else on the big screen here.
Don't put me on. I'm on a downswing. I don't want to talk about it.
Oh my
I
god.
have not had a good week this week on Global. I'm like kind
Day
of
goes
over
2
it.
days without winning a
So
tournament. It's a
take
downswing.
me off. Put
I'm
me-
gonna
put,
pull up. I'm gonna pull up on the
someone else on.
screen. Diana's Shark Scope. We're gonna look at her ROI
This
for the
downswing.
year.
Yeah.
You're
Oh,
down swinging. My down swinging.
Not
Maybe-
Let's
complaining.
expose. Let's
Rob, if
expose
you're really
Jay.
doing
Did
it,
I
make
say
sure
Diana?
you do
Just shoot me.
scheduled. Make sure you do
Yeah, yeah.
scheduled. Because
Not day, really? So she's like, I had a bad week. She's two tabling. It's Tuesday, so you busted 6 events. Like, okay.
I had a bad last week. I had a bad last week. I had that 2K score Sunday, and then I couldn't cash anything.
I would ask
But
Jay
you're right.
if-
It's like 3 tournaments a day. Yeah, I know.
I would ask Jay to
My
give us an
horrible
update,
downswing.
but he talked for like 3 hours about his deep run this weekend, so I'm gonna talk for him. Jay almost set his whole year up by winning the 100K, but he came up just short at shuffle this weekend. I busted in the first 2 hours, so I got to go home. But Jay was trapped there for 2 days.
And we had a last longer going, right?
Yeah, we didn't have the condition with DFS, but he didn't show up, so I lasted longer. I lasted longer because he didn't show up. But yeah, I guess you win.
Oh, because DFS didn't show up. He calls me out to go play this 100K, right? Like, I guarantee you I go deeper. Right. So I come out of retirement only because him and Brett talked me out of it. And then Craig sent me a text of like, we're gonna wreck you. So I come out of retirement. I go deep in this thing, and neither one of them could show up on day 2. Well, DFS didn't even show up on day 1, but
I tried.
Right.
I tried. I bluffed the calling station. That's something you don't want to do out there, kids. Don't do that.
Yeah. You don't want to talk to me about that because I will have to put about, I don't know, $80 in the bad beat jar, only because of my frustration level. But it was a pure GTO play, and I think.
Well,
I mean there was no other option.
So you can't lose.
Yeah, I couldn't lose. Like it was literally.
Didn't win either.
All the math was there, right? Like I don't know. Like, do you win? Do you lose? Is GTO? Well, I guess it's a zero-sum situation, right? So like I just literally went the GTO route, and I got called off by. I'm pretty sure. It was a non-GTO call, but it's all good, man. It's all good. We missed out again. Wow. I missed on the final table. I've had 5 top 20s in that tournament.
Well, eventually you'll win one. I've had a little online success. I had a couple of final tables this week online, so that's feeling good.
Nice.
I got to get the live grind going. I'm headed up to Choctaw this weekend for WPT. I'm going to make some progress on my prop bet. I'm 13 tournaments in, 7 more to go. I got till June 1st, so I've got a little wiggle room. I'm feeling a little bit better about the prop bet now, so we'll see how it goes. Anybody else? Sean, are you playing any?
I've spent the last couple of weeks getting needles shoved into my muscles
for fun.
It's going to be fun after they're done, but
okay.
For now, it's kind of sucked.
I thought this was just a pastime for you.
Usually it's the other way around.
Oh, you're doing the needling. I got you.
Yeah.
It's pretty good at needling too.
Anybody else?
I might hop on to a USPO event after the pod tonight and see what's going on there.
Rob, don't do it after. You should jump in. You should jump in when it starts. Do it at 8:30 Eastern while you're on the pod.
All right, I'll see y'all later then.
Right.
I said 8:30 Eastern. Are you in New Brunswick time? What's going on here?
What's the buy-in tonight?
99.
It's 99. Okay, I'll play that one too.
Rob,
there you
go. I'll try to make up for my punt yesterday.
No, you didn't punt.
That wasn't that bad of a punt.
I
punted way worse than that. That's nothing.
You went with a read. That's
it was a punt.
I appreciate the honesty.
There's the tough love.
Hashtag truth. Hashtag truth.
Now you know which of us will tell you if you have something stuck in your teeth. So there you go. Mika's
so
the one.
What's on tap tonight, Rob?
Well, I thought we could have some conversation, some strategy talk regarding some different topics that were interesting to us. We could provide some tips and some insights. And then we've got a little kind of follow up on your little conundrum, because apparently when you don't win the state championship, they task you with speaking at graduation. So
yeah,
we'll,
I need some help.
Pain.
We'll get into that here. Maybe the audience will have some ways they can help you as well. So
like to hear that.
stick around for that. But yeah, we're gonna talk some strategy tips and help you guys. So the first topic that we have
is this poker strategy?
Well, yeah, I mean, we can't play who can bluff who every single week on the pod.
This is the Queen's Gambit. This is purely about chess. So anyone who's,
I mean,
if you're not here,
to be honest,
probably should go
I don't know if I want to play any more games on the pod. I'm still reeling from getting slow rolled. It was a very I'm still overcoming it.
Strategy.
In my defense, I thought we were just showing from worst to best, like the card that shows from worst to best hands.
Yeah,
that is pretty much the order we went in. So to be fair,
and then
you were just waiting for someone else.
And everybody.
So I'm going first. All right, sounds good.
All right. So the first question on the docket today is: what are the most important things that you look for when moving to a new table? Who would like to chime in on this?
GTO.
Okay. GTO.
I moved to a new
Jay,
table.
That can't be your answer for every one of these questions today. You got to you can't keep doing it.
Why?
Oh, but it can.
I don't understand.
I'm calling you out.
It's the way of life is what I'm understanding. Or not. There's something that I'm not understanding. It's probably a thing.
We probably need to give the audience a slight bit of context because we started this whole thing, and it's all because Rob got all the GTO bros pissed off on Twitter today, and then I foolishly stepped in to defend his honor, and then they started coming at me, and so we're having a little GTO beef today.
Don't defend your friends publicly.
No, I will.
GTO.
I'll always defend my friends, but
so I would say for me to get real, I would say the first thing that are the most important things that I'm looking for at the table. One is like my stack size relative to everyone else at the table, and then what my position is for like aggression. If it's a table that I have some pretty good reads on, then I kind of like have a pretty good understanding of what I'm going to do in certain spots, but very relative to what my position is. Knowing like what they'll let me get away with, or ones that I know that I can trap, or just ags are going to be ags, right? So that's probably one of the two important things that I look for. I would say third, I look for who's got hoodie and glasses on, who's got a pocket protector, the standard perception of people,
Yeah.
Hey, Rob, are we talking about tournaments or cash or both?
I mean, I think the conversation's relevant to both. Like,
sure.
I mean, I don't know. I guess if there's a difference between the two, you could tie in on it. But for me, I don't differentiate too much.
Well, I will piggyback on some of the things Jay was saying. In fact, those were the things I had written down that I would have said. Similar things, a lot about stack size. But the other thing I think to not say the same thing is I often will quickly try to watch the first few hands and just see people's general comfort level, especially if you're going to like a big tournament series, like the World Series or like WPT this weekend. Try to get a sense of, is this person, are they excited, new, nervous, or if they're like, you get out this summer and the World, out there and at the World Series in summer, you'll see people that are like, been out there 6 weeks already. They're kind of jaded over it. And just try to like think about how all those things might affect, how you might want to play. That's something I definitely look for. Who else?
I kind of in the same vein, but different, Craig. The number one thing that I always look for is who's paying attention. Especially at the WSOP events that are $1,000 or less. At first, everybody's excited, like you were just saying. But about 2 to 3 hours into the game, you'll notice that like 7 or 8 out of the 9 individuals at the table aren't paying attention to what's going on. So they're going to divert to suboptimal play or like their muscle memory play and not pick up on the trends of the other players. So they'll actually start playing their version of GTO. So I find that really helpful. the other two things are what sizing individuals are using pre-flop. That's like the easiest way for me to get a litmus. And yeah, it's not always reliable data, but I'll take any data that I can, like as quickly as I can. And then the third one is there's a lot of variables and information you want to look at when you're at a new table. To make it easier for you, you could look at the two people to your left and focus on their play styles, because they will be the ones who will have position on you, or you will be their button. So you'll play probably and interact with them the most. So just having a good understanding of how things are going to go post flop versus them, you'll get those will be like the highest frequency. So that's where I find it easier to pay my focus to.
That's really, really good advice, especially for someone going out for a series for the first time and they're maybe overwhelmed with all the different things they want to think about. I think that's super solid advice.
Yeah, it's not original. Definitely taken from multiple sources, but it's been really helpful.
Well, delivered very well from you.
Thank you.
You know, to piggyback on that too, not just watching the people on your left, but how much they fold. Because if you're going to be their button and they're going to be the blinds, you can really steal a lot of blinds and open up your range if they're over folding way too much. So I love seeing how much they fold. Like, you know, if they're always folding their big blind, I'm just like, oh great, I'm going to open any two basically on the button when they're over folding.
So you're exploiting.
Yeah, one might say that. Yeah, we'll get into this later about exploitation.
Okay.
GTO.
Nice.
Yeah, everybody's kind of said it, right? Like everything that I do. I think something that hasn't been said yet that I could add to this conversation is listening. Like Jay and I, when we played the other day, there was somebody just talking about his whole strategy and telling the entire table about how he plays poker. First of all, he wasn't that right. He was pretty wrong about everything, but it's nice to hear how they think and how terrible of a player they are. And I would say at most tables, at least 2 or 3 people are going to tell you exactly their strategy and how they play. And then you can just adjust accordingly. So I think not only just looking for stuff, you also need to listen too. So like put the headphones away, especially if you're going to go to the World Series, because it's even there in particular, people are going to show you how smart they are. They want to tell you how smart they are, how good they are at poker, even when they're not very good. So listening is just as important, in my opinion, as watching.
Good point.
Yeah. I've got, when I go to a new table, I'm really looking at showdowns. I mean, I'm trying to see something that is like off. So like I'll look at a showdown and under the gun has like 8, ace 8 off, and I'm like, okay, so now I'm taking notes and I'm like, this guy's way too wide, doesn't like have the right ranges. And then I make adjustments based on what I see at showdown. Or, did someone miss a spot where like I would have bluffed like because he didn't have showdown value and he just checked it back. You make a note of that because when they do, then bet on the river, they have it. Like, and definitely like what Mika said with the sizing. But I will say something that I'm really cognizant of not doing is I don't profile players based on the way they look. And I hear so many of these streams or people who are like, oh, and I think it's probably because I play down in Bonita Springs, Florida, where there are so many OMCs that are super aggro. So I'm not like, oh, it's an old guy who's, 80 years old, he's never finding a bluff here until I see it, until I really try to be evidence-based. Also as a woman, how many times do I sit down at the table? I want you to profile me as, super passive because I'm way more aggro than you think I am. And I want you to fold when I'm bluffing. So good, go ahead and you profile me, but I'm not going to profile you. I'm going to do it evidence-based. And
I
and that's
profile,
how I've
but
always
I quickly adjust though based on the things we all look for. So when I start like seeing something different than what my initial profile is, I'll immediately adjust and change that. But I do like to profile when I first sit down. So I'm the opposite a little bit.
I take the mirror image to that as soon as I'm starting to put my chips on the table, I'm quickly shooting glances to see how I'm being perceived. Because I get to fill a lot of boxes. So am I the old guy? Am I not the old guy? Am I the crazy guy? Am I just some dumb hippie? Am I stoned? Am I not? Am I
All the
weird?
above.
Am I any good? Probably not, right? And if they think I am, that well, anyway, I just take all those perceptions and then I start to unravel them, to confuse them, and then make myself basically a big ball of what the fuck is this guy about?
Well done.
Yeah.
I have that thought every time I talk to you, Sean.
It's a very fair perspective.
I was going to hit on that too, Sean. It's I try to be aware of the folks that maybe I know I have history with. So not only am I looking at someone and like saying, "Oh, okay, I remember playing with this person at another event," because I'm pretty good at that. Like I could played with you like last summer. If you show up tomorrow in Texas, I will probably remember exactly how you played. What was that, Greg?
No, it's a superpower because I don't remember who I played with last weekend. And you'll be like, yeah, you'll tell me about a hand I played with somebody a year ago. And I'm like, how do you remember this? My hands, and much less your own. But no,
Right.
I think that's an incredible ability you have. And I just don't have that.
Yeah.
Which
and
is,
I leverage that. Like I try to, but I also want to be aware that that player may also remember me. You know,
I don't know
will
if they remember you like
typically
you remember
wait.
them.
I will wait to see if they say, "Hey man, how you been?" You know, or "Hey, how'd you do in that event?" If they don't say that, typically it's either they don't really give a shit or they just really don't remember you. You know,
right?
And odds are they probably don't remember you. But I do. I think this brings a lot of part. This is a really good question, Rob, because there's so many times that we talk about we do things in a vacuum, right? And now naturally that there's GTO conversations, but being like real here, I think that this is part of you constructing your personal game. And you probably should, like, for those that are working on their game or trying to say, like, how do I navigate? Like, I go into certain events, or cash. Cash is a little different, though. I think, like, Rob, you made a comment, like, you generally, like, kind of stick to the scripts kind of thing. And I think you can. I know you and I have had, like, long conversations about that. But I think you as a player, it's who defines you. Like you're literally just building out who I am, design your own style, right? And then you just bring that to the table. But like I think everything that everyone has brought here, it's extremely important because if you think about it, some people may have priorities, but I think all of these things are on your list, right? And you like maybe not on the, is it an 8-layer cake? 8-layer cake, is that right?
You can have,
on
you
the
can have as many
8-layer
layers.
cake, right? Some things are going to be there on layer 1 and 2, but as you grow in the game, right, and you start approaching, the 6th, 7th layer, that you are now adding all of these things in as you go because there's just a level of importance, or it's the tournament as well. Like the example, this past weekend, I wasn't thinking on the level that I would be if I was playing like the 250K over at TCH, or if I was playing up at Choctaw, Maine, right? Like I wasn't thinking, there were certain things I just didn't have to add in, just because of that field. But I think like for everyone who's building the game, like it's probably a good note. You go back and probably watch some of those things like, what am I looking for? You build that into your game. It's going to take you a long way.
Hence your text. You don't need to do that at Shuffle, I think was your text to me, right? About you don't need to do that here.
Right.
So the question was, what are the most important things you look for when you move to a new table? Usually what I do is I look to see if Jay's in the room and I say, Jay, give me the profile of everybody at my table. And it sounds like I'm making a joke, but like last week at Shuffle, I was like, Jay, and he looks over and he sends me 3 texts. And he had like 4 of the people at my table like just nailed. And I was like, oh, good to know. And again, I've played with most of these people too. I play in the same player pool Jay does, but I just don't remember the level of detail. And having the walking encyclopedia of Jay Carviello, and you can just text him saying, hey, sometimes he'll be at home. I'll send him a picture. Who's this guy? And he'll be like, oh, that's so-and-so. And he plays like this, do this. And damned if he's not right every time. So you need a good poker caddy. So look for Jay if you're in the DFW area, and he can give you the rundown.
One text from Jay increased my stack about 50%. You remember, Jay, you texted me about the player on my right?
You're right.
And he said, she doesn't fold. I flopped top set, and I was like, I'm going to bet big because she's not going to fold. And she did not fold. And I ended up increasing my stack 50%.
I literally put
that was great.
They fold nothing, and I put nothing in all caps. And then he drops a text like, I don't know, like 15 minutes later, he's like, I'm up to 80K.
Yeah.
Genuine question.
Yeah.
Is using J RTA?
It is.
It is 100%. But it's not against the terms and service though, because one person to a hand, but not necessarily one person to a table.
The funny thing is that Jay didn't even look at the picture of the girl. He just blindly typed "they never fold" and just knew that he was going to be correct.
Like, wait, she's at
should
shuffle.
have used that for other players. If I had just thought about that for other people at the table, I would have been fine. But
it's good advice. Sean kind of hit on this a little bit with this question. That's going to kind of the next question, which is, how do you use your image table perception that others have of you to your advantage? So now kind of flipping the script. How do you go about this?
Yeah, I want to go first because this is something that's occurred to me a number of different times where I'll come into an event with like kind of a game plan. Like, this is how I want to play today. I've been studying these things. And I want to open up my aggression a little bit, or I want to do this, or I want to dial it back. And then like you sit down and you get smashed with the deck. You just get like the first 2 levels, you're just getting hand after hand after hand. But a lot of these hands don't go to showdown. Now, to the table, to you, like, what your cards were. So you're like, I'm playing solid poker. I'm playing good starting hands. I'm betting appropriately with value, blah, blah, blah. So you're playing a solid game, but these hands aren't going to showdown. So to someone else, you're a maniac. And sometimes I think it's very important that your perception of the type of player you are might be very different than the table, and vice versa. You may have a plan to play, I got to really loosen up, I got to play more hands, I got to be more aggressive, but you're just getting dealt like 7-4 offsuit, and somebody's already raised, somebody's already called. You're just not getting the card to cooperate with your game plan, and you're thinking, I'm a loose, aggressive player, but the table thinks you're a nit, and then you start getting hands, and they're just folding. And there's folding, and you're like not even overplaying. So I think sometimes you can have a plan about how you'd like your image to be, but the first 2 or 3 orbits might just decide for you what your image is. And then the key is understand how other people see you, and then say, how do I exploit that? If they think I'm a maniac, then I've got to value bet more when I have it. If they think I'm tight, then I can get away with some bluffs that I shouldn't be able to get away with. And I think that to me is something I'm very cognizant of. Not how I perceive my image, but how I think other people do based on just my general level of activity, which often is dictated, especially the first few levels, about card distribution.
What's great about that is a lot of people have such a soft ego that when they see somebody else being a maniac, they can't help but tell them, I'm going to get you. Be careful, be wary. I'm going to get you. Like, even if you're just playing solid poker, like you were just saying, Craig, like, they'll tell you, which is great. And then you could just over adjust to it. You're like, okay, please do.
Right. You get that,
like, oh, they're raising again. Oh, surprise, surprise, raising again.
Right.
Right. They give you the next time, buddy. Go ahead and do it next time. Right. It always works until it doesn't. Like that.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah. It's a joke.
You can't always have it.
Right. Right. So, I think the kind of a playoff to you, Craig, is utilizing your image. One is your self-awareness. 2, though, is the ability to bring an image that's kind of just a full facade, right? So, and I think this gets missed a lot. Example, I've been doing this probably a lot more in the last 9 months than I have in the past, but because I've been showing up earlier to events and I've been avoiding late reg. Craig actually gave me shit about that. But I try to stay uber active early because it puts everyone at the table in a place where like I'm going to be the guy who's just going to be crazy ag, right? When the reality is I'm probably not even that aggressive. But my image is kind of set. What it also does is it's either when people play back at me, right? I'm like, okay, they probably have a hand here. And it's not so much of this like, hey, I'm just not going to let this guy push me around, right? It typically is that they actually have a hand. So I think there's a part of like making sure you can like create an image, right? That's not really the style that you're playing. You know what I mean? Or your typical style, right?
Like the 50 patches you wear, something like
that. Right. Like they see that and it just becomes a whole conversation. The other thing is whenever you're at a table again where like people might know you, now you definitely have to just completely change your game. At least for me, that's what I do. So anyone that knows or has a pretty good idea of like what my style has been, or if they played with me a little bit. And again, if I'm aware of that, I will just usually shift gears when I'm in hands with them. Like there are spots where I may just never call off a big bet against a particular guy, but he knows that. I may just like check call in a spot that I usually don't, right? Like it ends up being like a bluff catcher. But in spots where he feels like, well, he won't call off big bets. You know what I mean? And I may look him up once and I could be wrong, right? And I'm willing to do it just so that in that moment he understands like, oh, wait a second. Okay, now he's going to adjust to me. So now I have to be careful. You know what I mean? Where if he goes for it again later, I probably know, you know what, this is probably pure value now because he understands like I'm just going to call him off. So I think like you have to be, again, I think a lot of this is just awareness, you know, but for me personally, there are a lot where I try to set up an image and then try to use it to my advantage or my edge at least. Or just play PTO.
Mine's a little intertwined with a little bit of my strategy at the poker table. And it has nothing to do with my gender, surprisingly, even though that's a huge leverage I think that I could utilize. But I play a more coy strategy, I would say. I'm winning a bunch of tiny pots, but people don't notice the small pots. So I'm kind of undercover until I have a giant stack. And I've gotten it so many times where people are like, when did you get all of those chips? And it's like, I've been sitting next to you for hours and you haven't noticed that I've opened every single time you're in this spot and you just auto snap fold because you're on autopilot and I'm not. So I use that perception because kind of back to what I said earlier, if I notice that they start paying attention, then I will adjust my strategy. And I know now that their perception has changed of me, that I'm like a consistent player. The other thing that I take into consideration is when there's another thinking person at the table or they are paying attention, I have a really hard time not showing that I'm thinking. Right. Like I'm a deep thinker when I'm at the table sometimes. And like, I have like a very happy face and I'm socializing at the table, but then I have like my thinking face and people think like, oh, what the fuck?
Super intense too.
Yeah, it really is. Like, they're like, oh, fuck, she's got a poker face.
The sunglasses come down. She gets into mode.
We watched her in the ladies event. Remember we were over there. We're watching her in the hand. I look over at Craig and I'm like,
fucking Terminator.
What the fuck is Mika thinking about right now?
Literally, yeah. And so when people notice that like I'm thinking, I've noticed them try to adjust out of their comfort zone and try to outplay me. And I will exploit the shit out of that because they're going into deep pots that they have no idea how to handle. And I'm like still staying in this cool, calm, collected state because I've studied GTOJ and know what to do in those spots.
Good for you. Good for you.
With you, those 15 hours we spend a week together.
Yeah,
you know,
we were crushing it.
I need to be better at this actually, especially because I'm an aggressive player. So like sometimes I can overbluff, and I just don't really think. Like I think most people at the table, even if they see showdowns, like we're paying attention to that stuff, right? So we understand like how hands were played and things. But I don't think most people, even when they see the showdown, they see you constantly have good hands. They don't put those two together. They say, "Oh, he's aggressive. He keeps betting. He keeps raising," and they don't really think, "Oh, at showdown he had aces, ace, king, queens, whatever." They're just like they just get it in their head.
Right.
They're this person's aggressive, and so I need to remember that more. Because sometimes I will over bluff and then I'm like, how can they call me there? And I think about it later and I'm like, they just probably thought I was super aggressive and they just were never going to fold to me. So I need to get better at that. One thing I think I do recognize pretty well is when people are afraid of me because I've been so aggressive. Kind of like what you were saying, Jay, and I think I do a pretty good job of that. And I'm like, okay, I can abuse this player because I can tell they're afraid. Like they'll even show hands they should be calling with. They're just they sit there and they think, and they go, they look at you and they're just like, I don't want to deal with this person. And then they'll show like King Jack, suited in the big blind and fold or something crazy like that. You're just like, okay, I'm just going to keep raising your big blind every time then,
Right.
But I could, this is definitely the weakest part of my game that I need to remember when I go play.
But are you showing at all? So
no,
I guess that was just a follow-up question for you is just, are you showing hands at all in certain spot? Like the timing of showing a hand is like, man, it's one of the best things you could do, but it definitely has to be the right timing, the right hand, right spot, at least, especially. And if I show it, I make sure the whole table is actually looking because I want everybody to see it, because sometimes randoms do that random bullshit. Will just like flip their cards over really quick, just to, it's stupid. Me, like if I'm showing, I'm going to show it to you. But there's multiple reasons why, right? And naturally, depending on the spot, either it's like I made a big fold here, or a bluff. But like, are you taking those spots to actually show your hands?
Not usually. I'd say like, maybe if I'm just not getting paid off on my big hands, like Craig was saying, you're just card dead and people are just seeing you as the tightest player ever. I might show a bluff in those situations just because I'm like, hey, look, I'm not as tight as you guys think I am. But again, I don't think I'm as good at my table image as y'all are. So I rarely show.
This is one of those things where, as someone who teaches psychology and thinks about these things, like I am constantly aware of, is there a spot, is there an opportunity where I can manipulate this table's perception of me? I don't like to necessarily show bluffs. I almost always like to, if I'm going to show, it's to like keep people from playing back at me. Just because maybe I've just bet 3 hands in a row and this person, I can tell they're getting a little annoyed that I'm raising them, and I'll show them the goods, right? It's almost like it creates this friendliness, like, okay, look, I'm letting you know I'm doing this for you. And then a lot of times what that gets back for you is like, the principle of reciprocation is someone does you a favor, so you do them one back. But often when you get the return favor back, it's got a greater magnitude of value to you getting it back. So if I'm showing something, it's a small favor forward, but it almost always pays back in some reciprocation of either they're going to fold to me later, or they're going to show me a hand later that's going to give me some information that I can use in a much greater way. It's going to have a greater value to me, the information I get back. But Jay is right about the timing of it. And a lot of time it's like keeping a gauge of where like people are emotionally. And I want to keep people in the right emotional pocket so I can kind of keep them where I want them. I don't want them to get where their emotions are doing the right thing for them. So I'm interested what Sean has to say because he was talking about this earlier. I'm sorry, what was that, Brett?
I was just gonna say real quick, something that I do like to do at the World Series in these like lower buy-in, like massive fields, are you can get the table to play the show one card game for a little while, and it livens it up. Everyone starts playing looser, and you just start getting to see lots of cards you would not have otherwise seen. So that is something that you can do at the World Series in those lower buy-in games.
That's another thing where if you're playing in some cash games and people start drinking, you can really get those games to play in a way where you're getting a massive amount of information, but you're not necessarily giving away a lot of information. I find that I do that type of thing more in a cash game setting, but yeah, you're right for sure.
So yeah, I mean, we're talking about the idea of, our table image or perception at a given point in time and how we utilize that. So I'll start with, I mean, it's me. Who would feel comfortable at a table with me who's not stupid? You'd feel comfortable at a table with me. And the reason why is
the
because
qualifier is stupid. I didn't hear that part, so yeah, I'm still in your category, so we're good.
I mean, to be completely honest and fair, which is going to be a rare quality for me here, I can get a little unhealthy at the table at times regarding this because I am basically looking to absorb that information of how you do perceive me. And when you start to perceive me, it means you're thinking about me and you're letting me in your head. And that's my playground. And I like chaos in that playground. And I don't know. I mean, usually GTO, in my opinion, is a bad way to go, but against me, it might be a good way to go because I'm going to use as much information as I can and use it against you, but I'm also going to try and fuck up your head and make you go home sad. You can have my money in your pocket, and I'm still going to make you go home with something that will haunt you that night. I don't know what. I do this on the fly, but
I want to.
Do you have an example?
You're going to be banned, Sean.
Well, I want to sit at a cash game.
They're going to ban you from Twitter, TikTok, the Taste the Dream Pod. Where else? They're going to ban you from Global and ban you from ACR, what? Ignition, Tunica.
For what?
Because you said no GTO. Like, you're going to be banned for life.
That's how I would usually say to
life perma-banned.
I'm going to play in a cash game with Sean. I'm going to fold every hand. Just so I just want to be like sideline reporter. I just want to observe all this and just like take it all in. I would sit opposite and fold every hand.
That's interesting you say that because my exact reaction was I do not want to play in a cash game with Sean. And I'm gonna keep that in my brain and sorry, but although I think he'd be nicer to us. I don't think he'd make me cry. But
I don't know.
Okay.
Nice off the field, nice off the court.
Yeah.
You guys don't understand.
Oh, go ahead, Sean.
I was gonna say you guys really don't understand the absolute evil that boils in me at this point in time because you'll think I'm nice at the table. I am putting the dreams in your head and you don't know they're there. And you don't know I put them there. I play a very deep game and it has nothing to do with poker at that point. To me, it's like an extra little piece of candy on the side of a steak dinner. I get to use this to my advantage at the table. And I know I just put something in your head that's going to mess with you at 3 this morning or something. It's tough for me to even describe how I do it, but I do it. And I've had a lot of reports back that it's true. So yeah, you'll think I'm great at the table. Trust me.
Sean, do people ever table change away from you? Are there enough games going to Tunica that people can I'm just going to move tables. That Sean guy's here.
People never do that with me. Never. Okay. Never. The frog sits right there in the bowl of water.
Boil of water, yeah.
It just boils and boils and boils. It's just the way it is.
All right.
But
I want to challenge everybody here because I am going rogue, different than all of you guys, and I'm going to say versus the average player. All of what you guys just said is total bullshit because they're not caring about your image. They're not worrying about who you just bluffed and what cards you have. against the average player. Brett, the reason that they called you down wasn't because your image was aggro, it's because they were a calling station.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's way more important to figure out how your opponents are playing than to care about how you think they perceive you. Because again, average player, if you have a really, like Mika was saying, if there's a super thinking player at your table, like totally different, like image is important. But I have a feeling in the $150 buy-in that you guys were all just playing in Texas, I have a feeling that most of those players were just playing their cards and playing their strategy and had absolutely, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's
I don't
only
know. I
there's literally
disagree.
maybe 5% that actually think. In that.
Yeah. There's a lot of
I'm
truth.
going to lean on Craig a little here with what I'm about to say. So, Craig, back me up.
All right.
It's in human nature to make a bunch of generalizations in the first 5 seconds of knowing another person, right? So, our minds unconsciously create these storylines of perception. So, whether or not they are aware that they are applying that, they are going to have perceptions of you that are going to impact their game.
100%. And they have emotional responses. And these emotional responses are changing their baseline. So I get what you're saying, Day, about like, we don't have to like, I don't think we have to like get into elaborate strategies to beat certain players. But I think it's, to my take, to push back a little bit, like Mika's saying, it's like, I have to fight my quick biases and my quick assertions and my quick judgments and try to temper them with evidence, like to the contrary. So, and I think Brett was saying this before, once he might make a quick judgment, but then he's almost looking for evidence I'm always looking for evidence that I'm wrong. The problem is if we look for evidence that we're right, we find it. And then we strengthen our convictions, the confirmation bias that, oh yeah, I was right about that person. But they just may be hitting with the deck, right? Because they're just playing every hand. But when I can see a showdown and I'm trying to disprove, oh, wait, I've misjudged this person drastically because they just pulled a really nice bluff here. And I didn't think they had it in them. And so I think, I don't know, Dave, I think you're right in some respects, but I do think that it is an element of the game that is important. It's also an element of the game, I think, that gives me a little bit more pleasure in playing the game. Like I enjoy this layer of the game, and Sean relishes this layer of the game. And maybe, I do think in tournaments at some point, the stack sizes start to dictate the game a lot more than all this stuff. But when, Sean gets to play in these deep stack cash games, I think it's a bigger lever for him to pull. And in our cash game settings, these things might be bigger levers because we're playing deeper. But you might be right, Dave. You might be right.
And by the way, it was Day who had the evidence-based information. I just added to her point a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm evidence-based for sure.
Yeah, sorry. I got it.
But I do use that evidence to change my profiling initially. So that part you were correct about.
You going to take us out of this?
Well,
wake up, Rob. Wake up.
I say
we bored him to death.
Yeah.
I say when you get to the table, your goal is intimidation. And so I think about the people I know who are the most intimidating, and I channel them, and I'll bring an object like a rose. Everybody loves a rose. I love a rose. It's the same color as blood. You go to smell the rose, and then you get the thorn. And then there's more blood. And that is how you get them. That's how you use your image.
That's a great impersonation, by the way. That was spot on.
Holy shit.
Rob, did you get into the pharmaceuticals?
No.
He's been studying with me for a while now. So
Exactly.
This is what I use for my image. I wear shirts like this, and they just call me a nerd, like you.
I used
like,
I used to own that shirt, And like all the cool shirts I've owned in my life, my kids have stolen them. So I no longer own that shirt. All right, let's take it into realm number 3 here. Our third question is differences between live and online poker. And we got to keep this a little bit on the shorter side, you guys. If I'd have known you guys like talking about strategy this much, we would have talked more strategy this season. My God. But we got to solve Craig's graduation problem. So we'll try to keep this down to about 10 minutes. What are your guys' thoughts on how you differentiate between live and online?
I want to go first because I'm going to be short. I think it's all about courage, and it's super easy to be courageous online and like bluff it off in a spot where you're supposed to bluff it off, and you're usually not going to get called. But if you get called, you're like, oh well, and you just fire another tournament or turn the TV on or something. Whereas if I'm live and I know it's the right play, I don't always have the courage to pull that trigger. And I think it's like it's the precision in my bet sizing online, because I can like literally know exactly what's in the pot, and some of the plays that I might try online that are kind of thin. I just don't know if I find those live, and I think it's because of the comfort level of exploiting the drive home fold equity, where if I bust online, I'm in my house already and I can turn on Netflix and go right to what I would be doing anyway. Versus fudge, now I gotta drive home from the casino or home from the card room, find something else to do. And I think that a lot of times the difference between live and online is you get a lot more forward equity live. That's my biggest takeaway.
Jay knows what that drive is like, don't you? Get stuck in traffic after buzzing out of a tournament is the worst thing in the world. The worst.
Yeah, after getting called by 10-7. The biggest difference between live and online poker, GTO. What do you think, Brett?
What about the?
Yeah, that's a good short answer, actually. So like live and global, I'll put global in this live bucket because they're basically the same. I'm pretty much all exploitative. Whereas I think everywhere else online, you just got to be GTO. Most people are playing GTO. Most people, you don't know them. You can't see them. Other than like bet sizing tells, there's really no tells online. So you have to just go with, your basic type GTO strategy, in my opinion. Mika, what are your thoughts?
RTA.
Yeah.
RTA.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of RTA online for sure.
RTA. So now we're going to bring in Mika. Mika, you gave us a little RTA on our little card game that Rob did that day. Somehow he pulled off quad fives. But what's your thoughts?
Yeah, we had 2 decks, right?
2 decks.
Good. My thoughts. Well, first, I'm not saying that I am befriending these Twitter people who came at you and Craig, because I didn't read the post. However, I agree that GTO is also exploitative poker. So I just want to throw that little curveball at you, even though you probably could have guessed that in the first place. And I think Day hit the nail on the head with exactly what she said. So just throwing that out there. But what are my thoughts between live and online? I noticed live people are really bad pre-flop, and it could be because of RTA. Online, I think they are probably just have charts online and they're not making the same mistakes. What does that lead to? It means that they're going to start colliding a lot more and busting each other a lot quicker than online and making a lot worse decisions. Because when you make bad decisions pre-flop, it exponentially gets worse post-flop. So I actually find taking a more conservative approach live yields better results than online.
You also have way more multi-way live early in tournaments than you do even online. Online, you're often heads up or 3-handed even early, whereas live you're like 5-6-handed, especially in Texas.
That's
like,
so true.
Even halfway through the tournament,
Never played a multi-way pot in my life.
Final table, even it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Now again, this isn't global, so it doesn't count. That's like live poker. So.
Do you think that, in honesty, and it's pretty funny, but I know we'll move on to Craig and his ventures that he has coming on. But so it is what you said, Mika, is right. Because now I have to come back to this. But it's right. The problem is that most folks are not going to ever get to that level due to the fact of how much work it actually really takes, right? And let's go a little bit deeper. Even the ones that are playing like the height of their game right now, they're not even close to pure optimal, right? And they're going to continue to study it, and they'll be Doyle's age before they get another aha moment, right? And then everybody in between that time is going to change the complete style of how they play the game any goddamn way. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I think a lot of this, like when we're having conversations about it, we joke about it a lot, you know, and we all study it. We've all put hours, like you're not lying. Like we've done a lot of like study sessions, you know? But it's the point that so everyone is just so stuck on the fact that, well, the solver said I should call here, right? When the reality is probably like, nope, you probably should not have called. And that's where like there's such a big gap in my, at least my personal opinion. And this is why I give a lot of shit, because there's just so many spots that I'm just like, this is just dumb. Why would I call in this spot when I don't have to? I could just find another spot. You know what I'm saying?
Following the solver blindly is the mistake.
Yeah, it's a huge mistake. Most like the ones that like think they do it. Like I laugh when sometimes I'll talk about like, oh, kid at my table is pretty studied. And usually if I drop it in a text, I'll put a quote on there about studied, right? And it's I mean, I'm not trying to clown them, but I do think that this is a thinking player, right? But a thinking player doesn't necessarily mean that they're a fully studied player, right? Like a thinking player could just be kind of what you were talking on a day, could literally just be someone who is aware or is remembering that, hey, this person put a pot-sized bet in every time that they had a bluff, right? Or they put in a pot-sized bet, got called, and ended up mucking, right? Like that can also just be considered just a purely thinking player versus someone who's actually like truly studied in the game. You know, like how many people were the final table of the 400K, right? We had a lot of conversations, all of us, before I was going to that final table. We were having a conversation around risk premium, right? How many people at that table do you think actually had a risk premium conversation? Maybe one, and that would be probably Ryan Brown, right? Like aside of him, like nobody else is, and that's because his girlfriend is, she's a boss, you know, at the poker table. So I think that again, this is the enjoyment I have of this GTO conversation. And then I think a lot of people go down this rabbit hole really deep, and then you read it and you're just like, I don't even think you believe the shit that you just actually said. Like, you know what I'm saying?
You mean the guy with the dog wasn't talking about risk premium before the final table?
Right.
All right. Well, let's move on to important things.
Yeah, let's talk about.
I need some
real
help.
Risk.
I need some help.
Craig
is stressing.
I'm not that stressed. I have a little bit of time, but I have to write a commencement speech. I have to get up in front of a very large number of people in a very intimidating audience, and I have to give a speech. And I've done this before, but I was thinking today, I was starting to write a little bit, and I started to consider when I was these kids' ages, did I ever receive like any kind of actionable piece of wisdom from a teacher, from a coach, something that really resonated with me at the time, not something that many years later as an adult, I'm like, oh, now it makes sense. But in the moment. And so I was wondering if I could tap into you guys, like, do you guys ever remember getting a piece of advice at that age from a teacher or coach that at the moment really resonated with you? I'm kind of like looking for some ideas that may spark something in me, but I have a couple that I thought of that I received, but I was wondering if you guys had any of those.
If you study GTO.
Oh, stop it. Jesus Christ.
Oh, shit. Did I ruin it? Damn
Wrong topic.
Jesus Christ.
I can't think of advice that I've gotten, but like if I had to tell somebody, 17, 18 graduating, I would tell them not to spend their money on dumb shit. Like, in a more professional manner in a commencement speech, but I certainly would tell them just
Don't worry,
Wait,
I'm
his
writing it down.
goal
Invest your money,
is
save
for
your
them
money.
to remember this. If he comes up there and says, "Don't buy dumb shit,"
They
they
probably
will
would remember
never,
Yeah.
ever forget that commencement speech.
Sure, I'll
Right.
never be able to say another one, but
Don't
And
definitely don't
Craig will
do the,
solve his
like,
retirement problem. This is two birds with one stone.
don't do the whole like folding your bed speech
Nah.
thing or the,
No.
like that. I mean,
make
it's
your
good.
bed. To make your bed.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
that
that
thing.
was a good
Did I
speech.
say
But
fold
yes,
your bed. Yeah, make your bed.
All right.
That was a good speech.
I,
Go ahead. Day has
no,
a real
well,
one.
you go if you actually have one, because I have one.
I was gonna say Day has a real one.
I've got a real one that has nothing to do with GTO.
Oh, good.
No, well, and this comes more from raising 4 kids and lots of other kids that, thought of me as a second mom. Um,
Mm.
Kids have so much pressure on them right now.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna go back to like what people said to me, but like I think the most important message to get across to kids who are that age is that there's a lot of different paths in life and there's no straight lines. And just it's okay to veer off for a while. You can come back and there's just lots of paths to get to that destination. And just don't be hard on yourself when you get off that road for a little bit, because it's okay.
Mm.
That's what I tell my kids. And I think this generation, it's important because these kids have way more pressure on them than we did.
For
Now,
sure.
for me, when I was 17 or 18, I didn't listen to a thing an adult said because I knew way better than them. But yeah, like it's like the people that made the biggest impression on me, probably childhood, it was younger and it was just people who lived in a way that I looked at them and I was like, I had a second mom and I was a latchkey kid. My parents worked. And this second mom, they didn't have anything. I mean, like they didn't have any extra. And they took me in every day and they fed me like we had big batches of spaghetti and they treated me like family. And anything they had, they gave,
Mm.
to whoever needed it. And I was always like, that made an impression. And I'm like, that's the kind of person I want to be. That's what I want to do with my life. I want to be that place where any kid can come. They can always have a meal. They can, and whatever I have, they can have. That makes the impression. The speech, unfortunately, Craig, I hate to tell you,
Oh,
I don't
trust me.
like I don't remember my commencement speech or any speech an adult gave me at that age.
Well, that's why this one's got to be so good. I don't want somebody to say that one day.
Yeah.
And now they video them. Oh, wait, you're going to be videoed. It's probably going to go up on YouTube. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
for
got to
doing
do
it.
something good. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, thank
They-
you.
Back
they-
then they didn't
they-
have
it's-
videos.
It's
right? They didn't have
called
camera
live streams. Nobody
Yeah.
calls it videoed.
or videos,
Oh,
right? It's
I'm
not
old.
videoed.
Hey,
Camcordered.
You have VHS. I will say along the line, it was a joke that Brett just made about don't spend your money on dumb shit. And I will say this wasn't like something that was said like younger growing up, but I will say one of the most powerful things that I have heard over the last couple of years actually came from Gary Vee. And it was the comment that he made. And he said, I don't understand why people from their ages of like 20 to 40 years old spend all this money on shit trying to impress people that they don't even like. Right. And there's there's a lot of truth behind that, because a lot of things, like example, some people buy a car because they're just like, I want that car, right? But there's people that say, I want that car because the perception while I'm in that car is that I'm a particular person, you know? Like, example, I bought my truck not because I wanted to look like a standard Texan who drives around with a big ass truck. You probably never see, some of you haven't seen my truck, but like the other three goons have seen my truck. But I bought it because my plan was, like, at some point I plan to buy a boat for me and my son, and then I have the car, right? Because I want to be able to pull the boat. You know what I mean? Way too many times I think that people just spend money on things that are unnecessary, and they're literally doing it. Like, I have a big house not because I want to say I have a big house. I have a big house because I got a big ass family. You know, I'm like, I got to fit these people. Where else can I fit? I had 21 people in my house the other day, and they was like spending the night, you know? I need that space. But that's very different than someone, like, if they want it, then they're just doing it because they say, I just want to have it. But most people, they're miserable as hell, right? When they do these things. And it's completely unnecessary in my opinion. So I think when we're getting messages across to a lot of the young folks, is younger folks or younger generation, because they can get caught up in a lot of this bullshit social media life, right? Where it's very hard for, especially now with AI, but like, it's very hard for people to actually truly see what is real life and what isn't, you know, because there's a lot of made up bullshit in social media, you know, especially these reality shows. Like, I had to tell my girls growing up, like, don't you watch this random ass bullshit reality show and then think that you need to go find a man who can buy you all these goddamn Rolls Royces and all these fancy dresses and shit. Like, it's not a thing. Like, and if it does happen, it's one of two things. You just have someone who really, truly just wants to shower you with these things, right? At the end of the day. Or there's the flip side of that, is that they shower you with this because they own your ass. And if you're the one who wants to be attached to that, then by all means, like, it's going to be a rough life. But
Craig, are you going to use all this in your speech?
better.
I'm writing some things down, but I want to give an example though, because I did receive a piece of advice from a coach when I was leaving school. He gave me some advice. He said, listen, kid, this is Ken Wilson, my high school wrestling coach. Great man. Probably the most influential adult male in my life outside my father in terms of, like, as a young person. He said to me, everybody has a vice. Choose yours wisely. He's like, you don't get to go through life without finding. There's always going to be something that you're going to do to excess and probably to your detriment. He goes, but just choose wisely. And then he gave me a couple of things to particularly avoid. He's like, don't let it be alcohol or women, and you'll probably be okay. But he said, just pick your vices carefully. But he didn't tell me don't have vices. And it was he was so open and honest with me. He just said, choose it wisely. And I remember that. I remember that conversation. I remember him telling me that, and it was impactful. So, it's that type of thing, that I was looking for, is like, did anyone ever hit you with one of those type of things that it just resonated with you at that age? And I
have one, Craig.
I would love to hear it. Thank you.
I was younger, so I wouldn't say I was 17, but like 20. So close enough.
Sure. Close enough.
And kind of in line with what Dave was saying, is there's a lot of pressure at that age, and a lot of kids strive for perfection. And what they said was, you're not a doctor right now. Some of them might be doctors eventually, but you're not a doctor. No lives are on the line if you make a mistake. So lean into the mistakes, make them often, but then do better next time. And that has stuck with me to this day. And I repeat it to other people who just, like, there's so much guilt a lot of people feel when they make mistakes that they try to avoid failure at all costs. So that's why that one always stuck with me.
I like that.
I love that, Nika.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, that's a good one. Is don't be afraid to start over. Just because you go down one path doesn't mean that's the right path for you. And so if you have to choose another one and start over, don't be afraid to do that. Life's not over just because you switched, your path to something new.
Well, Day, if you would like to be inspired and pretend you're in high school, I have given commencement speeches before, and they do live on YouTube, and you can watch them. I have some ideas of what I want to talk about this time, and one of the things is like I don't want to rehash an old speech. I'm kind of come up with something new and relevant to these kids in this time that they're in and the time that we're in. And I have to kind of be a little bit aware of the broader audience that I'm speaking to. I can't, this isn't a place for me to pontificate and give my opinion so much as to kind of leave them with some ideas that they can carry forward in terms of like hold on to in that next stage where they can go get even more advice. And so that's kind of what I'm crafting. But, it's fun to hear what people were told, like when they were coming out of high school, that was either completely useless or was impactful. So we'll see.
Yeah, you got a lot of work in front of you, man. I could send you. I got a good song. You could probably listen to it. It'll give you 10 commandments. I don't know if you want to actually.
I'm good.
Use any.
I have real wisdom.
I want to hear Sean. I want to hear it from Sean.
I have a decade of wisdom. It's not even mine, which means it might actually be useful. You familiar with this show?
I do remember that show.
Yeah.
I do remember that show.
You can't get better wisdom than Denny Crane.
That's the answer.
That's the answer.
Okay.
And you have literally like 7 seasons or something to choose from. There's literally not an episode that doesn't go by when a unique and, in my opinion, extremely useful piece of advice is slipped out through Denny Crane. Mad Cow.
Craig, do you happen to remember the song? It's like something about "Trust Me" on the sunscreen, and it like got played at a lot of graduations in the 90s.
Yeah,
you could probably quote that word for word, and nobody would know you're talking about a song.
Well,
it would be good advice.
A lot of 10 Crack Commandments by Biggie Smalls. It wouldn't matter. You could use either one. I think, like Day said, it's that would be memorable. I'm just saying, if you did that, it would be memorable.
Especially never get higher in your own supply. That's definitely one that would be memorable.
Right. Never sell any crack where you rest at. Like those are the things you need to be sharing. Real life shit, man. These people
even if they want to
went through COVID, dude. This generation, they seem soft. In my opinion, though, I think they're actually long term going to be one of the toughest generations that we've seen.
Look, I'm with these kids all the time. And I'll hear people complain and bitch, oh, kids today, they're not, it's not true. These kids, first of all, these kids are really, really smart and they're really, really resilient. And many of them are very, very thoughtful. I watched that whole process. I gave a commencement speech at an outdoor setting because of COVID and looking at these kids who I had to look through at a screen through for a year. And we finally got to be the same place. We had to do outdoors and to watch them go through that and give them something to kind of think about as they move forward. But look, my whole thing is like, and I've done this a couple of different times in a commencement speech. Like, I'll turn to the kids and say, I'm not impressed with you. I'm not impressed that you're graduating high school today. It's not impressive. I'm not saying you haven't been impressive, but that in and of itself is not what's impressive. And then the turnaround is then I turn and challenge them. Okay, that's great. That was yesterday. What are you doing tomorrow? What are you going to do when you leave this place that's going to make me go, sheesh, okay, that's impressive. Because that's really what I want for them. Everything they've done up to now. Well, and but see that I've done that. I've done that version of that speech. So I'm trying to come up with something kind of new. So I have done this, have some experience with it, but anyway, I've got some ideas. I don't want to let too many of them out of the bag yet. I got to let them percolate a little bit, but I just thought,
make sure it's good because you couldn't even get Doug Polk a poker room after your speech down at the town hall place. So make sure it's good, bro. It's got to be better than that one because I got nowhere.
I had 2 minutes to prepare, And I had to follow all the church ladies telling everybody it was a bunch of sinners, and so I wasn't prepared. But no,
you said you were doing this commence. I'm like, Jesus, this is the same guy who failed to get Doug Polk a poker room here in Dallas.
Listen, there's a reason why I got asked to do this speech, and it wasn't because I've done them before and they've sucked.
I'm pretty sure Jesus couldn't get a poker room in Farmers Branch, by the way, so it doesn't matter who you are.
I'm gonna give you one small piece of advice, Craig, and this is something that worked well for me, but is very outside the box and probably slightly uncomfortable. Everybody they talk to between now and their first day of their freshman year of college is going to talk to them as an adult talking to a child. Be on their level. Be on their level. Act like they're on your level, and be in an even playing field. And if you do that, whatever you say will work.
Well, that's kind of how I run my classroom already. So that's kind of why I get asked.
Then you're the guy for the job. Then you're the guy for the job. That's
no, I never taught down to these kids.
Yeah, they're not kids anymore. Like,
good. Well, it's been fun. We called this episode the dinner break because we're heading into the dinner break for the pod. We're going to take some weeks off, get rested, get freshened up, figure out what the hell we're all doing this summer, because I think me and Day and Sean are probably, and maybe Brett. Okay, so yeah, Mika and Craig and Jay are the only ones that have no clue what's going on this summer quite yet. But we want to give everybody ample time to decide, figure out where they're going, and also we're working on a top secret project that we may have referred to a little bit last week. So lots in the coffers, but we will be back in May in a slightly different format. We will miss all of you dearly in the coming weeks. Any words of wisdom from the squirrel there, Sean, before we part ways?
Squirrel, I guess shit.
Game theory optional.
Yeah, game theory optional. That's good. I like that. I don't know why the squirrel.
Jay, I don't think you've made any GTO references this pod yet. Do you want to talk about it before we leave?
Yeah, I haven't. It's
all right. Go ahead and make one more, Jay. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of the podcast. We'll see you guys here in a couple weeks. On behalf of all my friends here, all of these awesome people who I call my team, my name is Rob. We appreciate you guys, love you guys, and we will see you soon.
I'm going for mine. You put it on mine.